Okay, welcome back to JMC vLearning once again. So basically the session which we are going to discuss today is one of the key auditing standards in your syllabus, which is basically going concern SLUS 570, which has been frequently tested at the exam. So like the way which we previously did, so I will be discussing this standard by way of a mind map. Okay, so then I wanted all of you to concentrate on this presentation for you to get a better understanding with regard to the SLUS 570, which is basically named as going concern. Right, so these are the session outlines for the standard. So we will be discussing about introduction, then we will be discussing about management responsibility and auditor's responsibility with regard to the going concern assumption. Then we will be talking about the indicators. We will be talking about the indicators with regard to going concern, which has been frequently tested at the exam. This has been frequently tested at the exam. Make a exam make a goda kawurudu lahala thiyena. Then we will be discussing about can the auditor reach to the final conclusion upon identifying an indication, which is basically the practical aspects. Then we will be discussing about audit procedures, plus we will be discussing about the reporting aspect. So basically these are the main 6 session outlines for the standards, which is named as going concern. Right, okay. So let's start the session like this. Okay, what I mean by going concern? මොකක්ද අකණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම කියලා කියන්නේ? Going concern. අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන අකණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම. Okay, what I mean by going concern? Normally, financial statements of a business organization prepared based on the going concern assumption. ව්‍යාපාරයක මූල්‍ය වාර්තා හදන්නේ පුතා අකණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම කියන සංකල්පය මත පදනම් වෙලා. The financial statements of a business organization is prepared based on the going concern assumption. So what do you mean by going concern then? Okay, fine. Before that, give few examples with regard to the going concern assumption while analyzing the financial statements. Okay, so when you go to the statement of financial position, you will be segregating your assets in between current and non-current. That is one of the classic examples for going concern. වගේ balance sheet එක අපි සරලව ගමුකෝ balance sheet එක නැත්නම් අපි කියන්නේ මූල තත්ත්ව ප්‍රකාශය කියලා. මූල තත්ත්ව ප්‍රකාශය ගත්තොත් ඔයාගේ වත්කම් ඔයා කොටස් දෙකකට කඩනවා ජංගම නොවන වත්කම් සහ ජංගම වත්කම් කියලා. Same way you are basically dividing your liabilities into non-current liabilities and current liabilities. So what do you mean by non-current liability? Non-current liabilities are the liabilities which you are planning to pay, which is basically there for more than 1 year. That is what you refer as non-current liabilities. Okay, what do you mean by current liabilities? Current liabilities are the liabilities that you are going to repay within the upcoming financial year. For an example, trade creditors. You will be consider that as a current liability. Bank overdraft. You will be consider that as a current liability. But long-term debt which you have obtained from a bank, which is classified under non-current liabilities. For an example, let's say you obtain a bank loan for a period of 10 years. You obtain a bank loan for a period of 10 years. Out of this 10 years, the repayment which is applicable for the next financial year, you will be classifying that under current liabilities. But the remaining 9 years, you will be classifying under non-current liabilities. So that is another clear example for going concern. අපි මූල තත්ත්ව ප්‍රකාශය ගත්තම වගකීම් කොටස් දෙකකට කඩනවා. ජංගම නොවන වගකීම් සහ ජංගම වගකීම් කියලා. ජංගම වගකීම් කියලා කියන්නේ ලබන අවුරුද්ද තුලද ගෙවන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන වගකීම්. ජංගම නොවන කියන්නේ ඒක ඊට වඩා වැඩි කාලයක් පුරාවට පවතිනවා කියන්නේ. Okay. So the classification of an asset in between current and non-current and the classification of a liability in between current and non-current will give you a clear indication that the business is existing planning to exist for more than 1 year time. ඔයා වත්කමක් ජංගම සහ ජංගම නොවන කියන වර්ගීකරණය කිරීම තුල වගකීමක් දිගු කාලීන සහ කෙටි කාලීන කියන වර්ගීකරණය කිරීම තුල කියවෙනවා ව්‍යාපාරය තව අවුරුද්දකට වඩා වැඩි කාලයක් පවතිනවා කියන. That is what you referred as what? Going concern. You need to understand the basics. In auditing, it is very much critical for you to understand the basics. විගණනයේදී හරිම වැදගත් වෙනවා මූලික සිද්ධාන්තයන් ටික හරියට ඉගෙන ගන්න එක. Okay, fine. Right, moving on in the presentation. Okay, what do you mean by going concern? Okay, under the going concern assumption, the entities WIVD are continuing their business for a foreseeable future. That is what you referred as going concern. Under the going concern assumption, an entity is WIVD as continuing in business for a foreseeable future. Then, in that context, financial statements are generally prepared based on what? Based on the going concern basis, as I explained you earlier. Financial statements are prepared generally based on what? Based on the going concern basis, right? Then, again a concern arises. Then who will be responsible for the preparation of the financial statements? Who will be responsible for the preparation of the financial statements? Financial statements hadanna wagakima tiyenne kaatada? So that is basically a responsibility of whom? Responsibility of the board of directors or the management. So the management and the board of directors are responsible for the preparation of the financial statements. Okay, so all these theoretical aspects which I am discussing in this mind map basically given in the tute as well. So I wanted all of you to read the tute upon completing the entire session. ඒක නිසා මේ session එක focus කරගෙන ඉන්න ඊට පස්සේ ඔයාලා tute එක බලන්න බලන්න tute එකේ ඔක්කොම අපි මේ කතා කරන theories ටික update වෙලා තියෙනවා. Right, okay. So the management or the board of directors will be responsible for the preparation of financial statements. Now I'm asking a question. Okay. Management will be responsible for the preparation of the financial statements, and the financial statements are prepared based on the going concern assumption. Under the going concern assumption, the entity is WIVD to continue its business for a foreseeable future. Then the concern arises, who will be responsible for the going concern assumption? ව්‍යාපාරයක් අඛණ්ඩව පවත්වාගෙන යාමේ වගකීම තියෙන කාටද? Who will be responsible for the going concern assumption of the business organization? It is pretty much simple. Who will be responsible? Management will be responsible to make sure that the company is continuing their business for a foreseeable future. කළමනාකාරීත්වයට තමයි අඛණ්ඩව ව්‍යාපාරයක් පවත්වාගෙන යාමේ වගකීම තියෙන්නේ. So in that context, therefore the management is responsible for the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. This is very much important. Management will be responsible for the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. අපි කියනවා පුතා මේකට අඛණ්ඩ පැත්ම සංකල්පයේ යෝග්‍යතාවය සඳහා වන වගකීම. යෝග්‍යතාවය. Appropriateness. So the management will be responsible for the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. ව්‍යාපාරයේ කළමනාකාරීත්වය අධ්‍යක්ෂක මණ්ඩලයේ වගකීම දරනවා. ව්‍යාපාරයේ අඛණ්ඩ පැත්ම සංකල්පයේ යෝග්‍යතාවය සම්බන්ධයෙන්. So the management will be responsible for the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So the primary responsibility with regard to the going concern assumption is vested with whom? Vested with the management and the board of directors. So therefore the standard specifically highlighting that, saying that management will be responsible for the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Okay, are we clear up to that point? Okay, fine. Moving on. All these theories which I am discussing in this mind map are there as I explained you earlier. So I wanted all of you to read the tute upon completing the session. Right. Then the concern arises. If the management is responsible for the going concern assumption, with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption, what is the responsibility of the auditor? විගණකවරයාට වගකීමක් නැද්ද? What is the responsibility of the auditor? විගණකවරයාට වගකීමක් නැද්ද? එහෙනම් වගකීමක් නැත්නම් why this has been included as an auditing standard? ඒ වගකීමක් නැත්නම් මේක auditing standard එකක් විතර දාලා තියෙන්නේ ඇයි? Now you have a concern. Okay, so let me apply this theory to practical aspects. For you to learn auditing, the most appropriate way is to apply the theory for your day-to-day life. Auditing වල තියෙන ලේසිම දේ තමයි theory ඉගෙන ගන්න. ඔයා theory apply කරනවා වගේ day-to-day life එකට. හැම දෙයකම apply කරන්න බෑ, but සමහර දේවල් වලට පුළුවන්, right? For an example, let's say, who will be responsible for their children? Who will be responsible for their children? ළමයෙක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් ළමයි සම්බන්ධයෙන් වගකීම තියෙන කාටද? For the parents. අම්මටයි තාත්තටයි තමයි ළමයා සම්බන්ධයෙන් වගකීම තියෙන්නේ. So the parents are responsible for their children. Clear? here the parent is considered as management. Here the parent is considered as management. Okay. Does it mean that the teacher is not having any responsibility? ඒකෙන් කියවෙන්නේ ගුරුවරයාට වගකීමක් නැහැ කියලාද? The primary responsibility with regard to their children is vested with parent. Does it mean that the teacher is not having any responsibility? Here the teacher is considered as the auditor. ගුරුවරයා තමයි මෙතන auditor කියලා ගන්න. Does it mean that the teacher is not having any responsibility? No, teacher is also having the responsibility. Not and as the same magnitude of the parent, but also the class teacher also having a responsibility. So what is a class teacher's responsibility? Class teacher is responsible to check whether the parent's responsibility with regard to the children, whether that is having a question mark or not. ළමයි සම්බන්ධයෙන් දෙමව්පියන්ට තියෙන වගකීම ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයකට ලක් කරන අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවාද කියන එක ගුරුවරයා බලන්න ඕනේ. For an example, let's say teacher is giving homework for the students. Let's say there is one student who is never doing the homework at home. ළමයෙක් ඉන්නවා එයා කවදාවත් ගෙදර වැඩ කරලා ඉන්නේ නැහැ. Every day the teacher is scolding him. ගෙදර වැඩ කරේ නැහැ කියලා. What does that implies? That implies that the parents are not looking at their books. දෙමව්පිය පොත් බලන්නේ නැහැ. පොත් බැලුවා නම් ගෙදර වැඩ කරා කියලා දන්නවනේ. In that context, the responsibility of the parents for that children is having a big question mark. So apply the same theory here. Appropriateness of the going concern assumption is a responsibility of the management, no doubt about it. Appropriateness of the going concern assumption is a responsibility of management, no doubt about it. The primary responsibility is vested with management, but it does not mean that the auditor is not having any responsibility. No, auditor is also having a responsibility, but not to the same magnitude as auditor. Not to the same magnitude as auditor. So what is auditor's responsibility? Auditor is having the responsibility to consider the possibilities where the management responsibility for the going concern assumption is having a question mark. විගණකවරයාට දෙන වගකීම තමයි මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකට තියෙන මේ වගකීම ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයකට ලක්වන අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා නම් that is very much important. ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයකට ලක්වන අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ පිළිබඳව විගණකවරයා බලන්න ඕනේ. Auditor is having the responsibility to consider the possibilities where the management responsibility for the going concern assumption is having a question mark. මේගොල්ලන්ට තියෙන මේ වගකීමේ question mark එකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ පිළිබඳව බලන එකේ වගකීම විගණකවරයා සතුයි. Clear? That is what the auditor's responsibility is all about. Clear? Right. Moving on. Since the auditor is having the responsibility to consider the possibilities where the management responsibility for the going concern assumption is having a question mark, what does the auditor supposed to do? විගණකවරයා මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? SLOS 570 specifically highlighting the auditor, you need to perform 3 procedures. As an auditor, for you to comply with the requirements, comply with your responsibilities, there are 3 areas to be covered. Okay, what are those 3 areas? Number 1, you need to conclude whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. As an auditor, you need to check whether there is a material uncertainty. This word is very important and very technical. Material uncertainty. I wanted you to highlight this in your tute. Material uncertainty. මේකට අපි සිංහලෙන් කියනවා ප්‍රමාණාත්මක අවිනිශ්චිතතාවයක්. ප්‍රමාණාත්මක අවිනිශ්චිතතාවයක්. Auditor has to check whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. So what do you mean by material uncertainty? You will get to know later. දැන්ට වචනේ විතරක් මතක තියාගන්න. Okay, so auditor has the primary responsibility to conclude whether there is a material uncertainty about the going concern assumption. Going concern assumption එක සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රමාණාත්මක අවිනිශ්චිතතාවයක් තියෙනවාද කියලා විගණකවරයා බලන්න ඕනේ. Clear? Right. Upon completing that responsibility, auditor cannot wash his hand. ඒ වගකීම කරා කියලා විගණකවරයාට තමන්ගේ අත හොද ගන්න බෑ. He will be having another 2 additional responsibilities. What is the second one? You need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Sufficient and appropriate audit evidences about the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. As an auditor, you need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. So what do you mean by sufficient and what do you mean by appropriate, where we have discussed on SLS 500. අපි ඒක ප්‍රවිධාංග 500 විගණන සාක්ෂියටද කතා කරා. So what do you mean by sufficient? Sufficient means how much of audit evidences that you are going to collect. Sufficient කියලා කියන්නේ කොච්චර විගණන සාක්ෂි ප්‍රමාණයක් රැස් කර ගන්නවාද. That is what you referred as sufficient. We had a deep dive with regard to these theoretical aspects in a previous standard, which is SLS 500. Okay, sufficient means how much of audit evidences that you are going to collect. Appropriateness means basically the relevance, reliability and the quality of the quality of the audit evidences. So appropriateness means the reliability, relevance and the quality of the audit evidences that you are going to obtain. So what is the difference between sufficient and appropriate? Sufficient is measurable, quantifiable, but appropriateness you can't measure. This is basically quantitative and this is basically qualitative. So I'm not going to explain all this in detail since we have discussed that in a different standard, which is SLAS 500 audit evidence, but I just want to recap the memory there. Okay, so now the second responsibility of the auditor with regard to the going concern assumption is what? Auditor has to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. This word is very important. I wanted you to highlight this. Appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Okay, so as an auditor, you need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Right, so first of all, you will be checking whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. Upon checking that, you will be obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit evidences with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Okay, what is number 3? Number 3, you need to analyze the impact of the going concern assumption with regard to the financial statements as well as for the audit opinion. You need to analyze the impact of the going concern assumption which is having on the financial statements as well as to the audit opinion. එතකොට මේ going concern assumption එක financial statements වලටයි opinion එකට ඇති කරන මොකද්ද? බලපෑම දිහා බලන්න ඕනේ. Clear? මුලින්ම බලන්න ඕනේ ප්‍රමාණාත්මක අවිනිශ්චිතතාවයක් තියෙනවාද කියලා, whether there is a material uncertainty. Then you need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Finally, you need to check and evaluate and see the impact of the going concern assumption which is having on the financial statements as well as on the audit opinion. So if the auditor is able to perform these 3, he basically done with his job. එයාට මෙන්න මේ කාරණා තුන කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් එයා යාගේ වගකීම කරලා තියෙනවා. So that is why audit is also having a responsibility. So for you to consider whether the management responsibility is having a question mark with regard to the going concern assumption, you need to perform certain procedures. So standard wanted you to perform these 3 procedures. Keep it very simple. Check whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. Obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences about the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Finally, you analyze the impact and see the going concern assumption is having an impact, whether that is having an impact for financial statements as well as for audit opinion. Clear? Right, okay, moving on. Therefore, the auditor required to be on alert in the planning stage and the performing stage and the review stage. So what are these 3 stages? Planning, performing and review. We discussed this in another standard as well, which is SLS 240. Planning, performing and review. In audit, it can be segregated into 3 stages. So what are these 3 stages? Planning, සැලසුම් කරණය කරන අධියර, performing, ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන අධියර, review, සමාලෝචනය කරන අධියර. So the combination of all these 3 is referred as what? Overall audit process. So throughout the overall audit process, standard wanted the auditor to check whether there is a doubt with regard to the going concern assumption. Since the auditor is having the responsibility, concentrate now. Since the auditor is having the responsibility, standard wanted the auditor to consider whether there is a question mark or doubt with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. That has to be checked in the planning stage and the performing stage and the review stage as well. So throughout the overall audit process, auditor will be responsible to consider about the going concern assumption. සමස්ත විගණන ක්‍රියාවලිය පුරාවටම අඛණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම සම්බන්ධයෙන් විගණකවරයා බලන්න ඕනේ. So if the audit is not having any responsibility, විගණකවරයාට වගකීමක් නැත්නම් මේක කරන්න කියන්නේ තමන්ට වගකීමක් තියෙන නිසා තමයි විගණකවරයාට මේක කරන්න කියන්නේ. Clear? Right. So in that context, now focus. In that context, Standard wanted the auditor to focus on three things. Standard wanted the auditor to focus on three things. So what are those three things? Number one, throughout the audit process, concentrate. Throughout the audit process, as an auditor, you need to check. I'll use a different color. As an auditor, you need to check whether there are any financial indicators which will have a negative impact to the going concern assumption. Understand this very clearly. Throughout the audit process, the standard wanted the auditor to check whether there are any financial indicators which create a negative impact to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Clear? Number two, we'll come to this once again. Number two, throughout the audit process, auditor needs to check whether there are any operational indicators which create a doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So then he need to consider about the financial indicators and operational indicators. අපි මේකට කියනවා මූල්‍යමය ඇඟවීම. මූල්‍යමය ඇඟවීම. අපි මේකට කියනවා ක්‍රියාකාරී ඇඟවීම. ක්‍රියාකාරී ඇඟවීම. Right. Number three, throughout the audit process, auditor wanted for you to consider whether there are any other indicators, not the financial, not the operations. Whether there are any other indications which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to what? With regard to the going concern assumption. So throughout the audit process, understand this very carefully. Throughout the audit process, auditor wanted to consider whether there are any financial indicators, operational indicators or other indicators which creates a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. සමස්ත විගණන ක්‍රියාවලිය පුරාවටම අඛණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයක් මතු කරන මූල්‍යමය ඇඟවීම් තියෙනවා නම් ක්‍රියාකාර ඇඟවීම් තියෙනවා නම් වෙනත් ඇඟවීම් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ පිළිබඳව විගණකවරයා බලන්න ඕනද නැද්ද? ඒ පිළිබඳව විගණකවරයා බලන්න. So throughout the audit process, audit is having the responsibility to consider whether there are any financial indicators, operational indicators and other indicators which creates a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Clear? Right. Okay. So what are the financial indicators? මොනවද අඛණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයක් මතු කරන මූල්‍යමය ඇඟවීම්? So when you look at the financial statements, you can identify enough and more indicators which create a significant doubt in your mind as an auditor with regard to the going concern assumption. Okay, so what are the financial indicators? Number one, if the company is making continuous losses for the previous financial years, it will give you a clear indication with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. ගිය අවුරුදු වල දිගටම ව්‍යාපාරය ලාභ ලබලා තියෙනවා නම් අඛණ්ඩ පැවැත්ම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයක් තියෙනවද නැද්ද? තියෙනවා. So if the business organization is making continuous losses over a period of 5 or 10 years, which will create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So that is number one. Number two, if the company is having a negative equity situation, what do you mean by negative equity? Your total liabilities are more than your total assets. That is what you refer as negative equity. අයිතිකරුවාගේ ශුද්ධ අයිතිය ඍණ වෙනවා නම්. So it is a situation where as an auditor, you will be having a doubt with regard to the going concern assumption. Right. Number 3, if the company is having a current liability situation, net current liability situation, your current liabilities are more than your current assets. ඔයාගේ ජංගම වක්කීම් ප්‍රමාණය වැඩි ජංගම වත්කම් වලට වඩා. That is also considered as a indicator with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So if the business is continuing making losses, if the company is facing into a negative equity situation, if the company is having a net current liability position, those are considered as what? Financial indicators, right? We do have another 3 to 4 financial indicators. Then let's say the company has not declared dividend for shareholders for the last 5 years. Even though they declare, they are not paid. ලාභාංශ ගෙවීම ගෙවලා නැහැ නැත්නම් ලාභාංශ ගෙවීම මගහැරලා තියෙනවා. That is also considered as another indicator which will create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the going concern assumption. So the company has obtained loans from the bank, but they are not repaid the installment properly. They are not repaid to the suppliers at regular intervals. So those are considered as what? Financial indicators which will create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to what? With regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So for an example, we'll summarize the points which we discussed. If the company is making continuous losses, if the company is having a negative equity situation, if the company is having a negative current assets, negative net current liability position, then if the company is not make any dividends for the last 5 to 10 years, companies has obtained loans from the bank but they have not repaid those installment, not making the suppliers at regular intervals, those are considered as what? Financial indicators which create a doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So there are several indicators for you to look at when you are reviewing the financials to ascertain whether there is a question mark with regard to what? With regard to going concern assumption. So that is number 1. Then, what are the operational indicators which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption? මොනවාද ක්‍රියාකාරී ඇඟවීම් විගණකවරයාට ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථය මතු කරන අඛණ්ඩ සම්බන්ධයෙන්? Number 1, the loss of a major market. The loss of a major market. Which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So for an example, let's say you are in export industry. Okay, so you are in export industry. Okay, you are basically exporting your garments. So let's say you are basically running apparel company. You are having a factory where you export garments. Okay, so Europe is one of your major customers in the export market. So let's say one of the customers who located in Europe is bankrupt. Now you are about to lose in that customer. That creates a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to what? With regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So the loss of a major market, loss of a major customer, then loss of a major supplier. For an example, let's say you are basically manufacturing items in Sri Lanka and you are exporting as well. ලංකාවේ නිෂ්පාදනය කරලා භාණ්ඩායි අපනයනය කරනවා. So you are basically importing materials for the manufacturing process. ඔයාගේ නිෂ්පාදනය සඳහා අමුද්‍රව්‍ය පිටරටින් ඔය ආනයනය කරනවා. So let's say one of your suppliers who supplied more than 80% from raw materials got bankrupt. It will have a negative impact for your business operation, which will create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So loss of major markets, loss of major customers, loss of major suppliers are considered as what? Indicators where you have question mark with regard to the going concern assumption from the operational perspective. Right. Another example, top management. Every year top management is leaving but the vacancies are not fulfilled. ඉහළ කළමනාකාරීත්වය ඉවත් වෙලා යනවා පුරප්පාඩු පුරවන්නේ නැහැ. Every year top management is leaving. Management is not willing to stay in a company where you don't have a going concern. So the top management is leaving and the vacancies are not fulfilled. Again, that creates a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So those are considered as what? Operational indicators which will create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. So the standard wanted for you to consider about the financial indicators and the operational indicators which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Apart from that, standard wanted for you to consider other indicators as well. So for an example, let's say government policies. Sometimes the government may change their policies, which will have a negative impact to the business organization. So you need to check those as well. Changes in import and export regulations. Those are also having a negative impact to what? Going concern, which are neither considered as financial nor the operational. So those are considered as what? Other indicators. So therefore the standard wanted for you to devote your attention as an auditor for other indicators as well, which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Okay, are we clear up to that point? I am repeating this again. Upon completing this presentation, I wanted all of you to read the study text which has been uploaded to the vLearning platform. Clear? Right. Okay. So are we clear up to this point? So in summary form, concentrate. In summary form, throughout the audit process, okay, throughout the audit process, auditor wanted to consider whether there are any financial indicators, whether there are any operational indicators, or whether there are any other indicators which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Clear? Yes or no? Right. Okay. I wanted to do a small thing now. Clear? I wanted to do a small thing now. Okay. I will be putting a star mark here. Okay, I will be putting a star mark here. Now I wanted you to concentrate. I basically put a star mark here and I am putting the same star mark here as well. ඒ මම දාපු star mark එක මම මෙතෙන්ටත් ගන්නවා. මම මෙතෙන්ට star mark එකක් දැම්මා. ඒ star mark එක මොනවද කරේ? මෙතෙන්ටත් දැම්මා. Clear? Right, so I am putting the star mark here and I will be putting the same star mark here. Right. Okay, can you identify a link? Can you identify a link? මෙතෙන්ට star mark එකක් දැම්මා, මෙතෙන්ට star mark එකක් දැම්මා. Can you identify the link? Now you should be able to identify the link. What do you mean by this? You, as an auditor, you need to conclude whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. With regard to the material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. As an auditor, you need to conclude whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. What does that mean? It means that as an auditor, you need to check whether there are any financial indicators, whether there are any operational indicators, or whether there are any other indicators which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the going concern assumption. මේ material uncertainty කියලා කිව්වේ මෙන්න මේ කාරණා තුන බලන්න කියලා. For an example, if the company is having financial indicators, concentrate, if the company is having financial indicators which will have a negative impact to the going concern assumption, what does that mean? It creates a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the going concern assumption. I am repeating this again. If the business organization is having financial indicators which has a negative impact for the going concern assumption, that is basically equals to having a material uncertainty in the auditor's mind with regard to the going concern assumption. If the business organization is having any operational indicators which has a negative impact to the going concern assumption, it means that audit is having a material uncertainty with regard to what? Going concern assumption. if the business organization is having other indicators which has a negative impact to the going concern assumption, it implies that audit is having a material uncertainty with regard to what? With regard to going concern assumption. Clear? So in simple language, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? As an auditor, you need to conclude whether there is a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. What does that mean? As an auditor, throughout the audit process, you need to check whether there are any financial indicators, other indicators, or operational indicators which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the going concern assumption. So basically, when I put the star mark here, you should be able to obtain the understanding or the link between these two. Clear? Right. Okay, moving on. Okay, going concern is considered as one of the complex auditing standards, but I'll keep it simple for you. Okay, my concern is this. By just looking at a financial indicator, even though you see a financial indicator, even though you see operational indicator, even though you see another indicator, my concern is this, my question is this. Based on the indicators, can you reach to the final conclusion? Based on the indication, can you reach to the final conclusion? මේ indications මත පදනම් වෙලා අවසන් නිගමනයට ලැබෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? Based on this indication, can you come to the final conclusion? For an example, indication will give you a clear red mark. What a indication of රතු එළියක් ගන්නවා, agreed. But based on that red indicator, can you come to the final conclusion? Can you come to the final conclusion? For an example, let's say, during the last 5 years, the company is making operational losses. During the last 5 years, the company is making operational losses. Yes, as an auditor, which will create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Last 5 years, the company is making continuous losses. ගිය අවුරුදු පහම ව්‍යාපාරේ දිගටම ලාභ ලබාගෙන ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. You cannot continue like this. Agreed. As an auditor, I am seeing a financial indicator which create a significant doubt in the auditor's mind, in my mind, with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. Agreed. As an auditor, I am seeing a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. Agreed. But my question is, based on that indication, can I come to the final conclusion? ගිය අවුරුදු පහේ අලාභ ලැබුවයි කියලා එකපාරට අකණ්ඩ බැඳමක් නැහැ කියන්න පුළුවන්ද? Coming back to the second example, let's say you lose a major market. Let's say your business organization is in export industry. This year you lost a major market. One of your main customers bankrupt. Agreed. As an auditor, you will be identifying an operational indicator which create a significant doubt or material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. Agreed. But based on that indication, can you come to the final conclusion? Do you have audit evidence to prove? That's what my question is. Based on the indications, can you come to the final conclusion? Your definite answer would be no. Indication එකක් දැක්ක ගමන්ම අවසන් නිගමනයට එළඹෙන්න බෑ. Agreed. Indication will give you a red alert. Indication will give you a red alert, but based on that red alert, you cannot come to the final conclusion. Why? Because you don't have audit evidences in your hand. Because you don't have audit evidences in your hand. Indication is not considered as an audit evidence. Remember that. ඇඟවීමක් විගණන සාක්ෂියක් විදියට ගන්න බෑ අපි. Indication cannot be considered as an audit evidence. So you need a concrete audit evidence to prove your opinion. You need a concrete audit evidences to prove your conclusion. So therefore, while performing several procedures, you need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. You need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. So we'll take a classic example. Okay, before we go in detail in this standard, so we'll take a classic example. So let's say I am the auditor where I am auditing two companies. ABC and PQR. As an auditor, I'm basically auditing two companies, ABC and PQR. Okay. Number one, ABC for the last 10 years, they are making continuous losses. ABC, last 10 years, the company is making continuous losses. PQR as well, let's say for the last 10 years, making continuous losses. Okay. In both business organizations, I am seeing the same financial indicator. I am seeing the same financial indicator. මේ ව්‍යාපාර දෙකේම මම එකම මූල්‍ය මැගවීම දකිනවා, which will create a significant doubt in my mind with regard to a material uncertainty about the going concern assumption. You need to apply the theory. In both business organizations, I am seeing a financial indicator which create a significant doubt in my mind with regard to a material uncertainty about the going concern assumption. Agree. So I'm seeing a financial indication, but I cannot come to the final conclusion, right? So let's go little bit further. Okay. Now I'm meeting the management of ABC. මම ABC company management එක හම්බෙනවා. Management එක හම්බෙලා I'll explain to them. Look here, for the last 10 years, your business organization is making losses. You cannot continue like this. What is your future plan? As of today, I'm seeing a financial indicator which create a significant doubt in my mind with regard to a material uncertainty of the going concern assumption. So what is your action plan for this? ව්‍යාපාරය අවුරුදු 10ක් දිගටම ලාභයි මෙහෙම යන්න බෑ. මම අද දකිනවා අකණ්ඩ බැඳීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයක් තියෙනවා කියලා. What is your action on that? So I'm asking a question from management. Okay, management give a reply like this. Jeevanta, yes, agree with the fact that we made losses for the last 10 years. Now we identified the reasons for those losses. We have made losses as a result of these reasons. So we have rectified most of those reasons, most of those weaknesses. In this financial year, we are planning to come to the break-even level, and this is what our plan is all about. In this financial year, the upcoming financial year, we are planning to come to the break-even level. No profit, no loss. Okay, it's a massive achievement. Last 10 years you have making thumping losses, but next financial year you have come to the break-even level. So strategically everything changed. Then the second financial year we are expecting a profit of this much. Third financial year this much. We have prepared the budgets for the next 5 financial years. අපි අද වෙනකොට budget හදලා තියෙනවා ලබන අවුරුදු 5ටම අදාළව. So these are the action plans, these are the strategies which we are going to implement to achieve these profitability targets. So they gave me the detailed plan for the next 5 years, and they basically gave the strategy for that as well. Okay, so I ask a question from them, then they are basically providing a solid evidences to me. Okay, same thing. Same question I'm asking from PQR management. Same question I'm asking from PQR management. I meet in the PQR management and say, look here, for the last 10 years you are making continuous losses. You cannot continue the business like this. As of today, I am seeing a material uncertainty with regard to the going concern assumption. What is your action plan? Okay, the same question I am asking from PQR as well. Then the PQR gave an answer like this. Jeevanta agreed. For the last 10 years we have made losses and we are trying our level best, but for the next 5 years as well, we are not in a position to identify a suitable strategy for us to overcome this situation. That is a reply which I am receiving from the management. Last 10 years, yes, we have made losses, but for the upcoming financial years as well, we are yet to identify a strategy to convert this business organization to a profitable venture. We are struggling to have a proper strategy for that. Okay, same question, 2 different answers. Okay, my question is this. Now you need to come to the final conclusion with regard to the going concern assumption. Which company is having a question with regard to going concern now? Definitely PQR. Definitely PQR. ABC, basically the negative impact of the indication is nullified by the action steps taken by the management. ABC වල අකණ්ඩ බැඳුම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඇතිවන අහිතකර බලපෑම management එක ගන්න ක්‍රියාමාර්ග වලින් හරි ගිහිලා තියෙනවා. But PQR remains as it is. Agreed? So in that context, both companies, you saw the financial indicator. Both companies පුතා you saw the financial indicator. මේ ව්‍යාපාර දෙකේම වඩේ same indication එක තිබුණා. ABC is also incurring continuous losses for the 10 years, whereas PQR also incurring continuous losses for the 10 years. Both companies are seeing the same financial indicator, but the management action taken by the ABC management is nullifying the negative impact of the last 10 years losses. I'm repeating this again, understand. The actions taken by the ABC management basically nullify the negative impact which arise on the going concern assumption for the losses which incurred in the previous financial years. But that scenario is not applicable for PQR. PQR is having a question mark definitely. Agreed? Right. So basically depend on the indication, you cannot come to the final conclusion. Clear? Right. So for you to give a better understanding with regard to this, we'll go to another example. Same scenario. There are two companies, ABC and PQR. I am the auditor. Okay, I am the auditor. Okay, ABC, I am seeing a loss of a major customer. Loss of a major customer. ABC company මම දකිනවා major customer කෙනෙක් එයාට නැති වෙලා තියෙනවා. PQR also the same. Loss of major customer. Okay, let's say both these business organizations are in the export industry. Both these business organizations are in the export industry. Maybe व्यापार देखा मैं export industry के दमाइन. ABC also lost a major customer who basically purchases more than 80% of your stocks. PQR as well lost a major customer where he purchases 80% of your stocks. Both companies, I'm seeing what? I'm seeing an operational indicator. Operational indicator which create a significant doubt in my mind with regard to the appropriateness of the going concern assumption. මේ ව්‍යාපාර දෙකේම අකණ්ඩ බැඳුම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙන ක්‍රියාකාරක වීමක් මම දකිනවා. So I'm going to discuss, I'm having a discussion with management. Okay, so I'm going to the ABC now. And I'm saying to ABC, look here, you have lost a major customer who located in Europe, where he basically purchases more than 80% of your production for the last 5 years. What is your action plan? You have lost a major customer. That customer already purchased more than 80% of your production for a financial year. Now you are losing that customer. You have already lost that customer. As an auditor, I'm seeing a operational indicator in my mind which create a significant doubt with regard to material uncertainty of the going concern assumption. So I'm asking a question from there. Okay, let's say this is the answer which I received from ABC. Jivanta, yes, agreed. We lost a major customer who located in Europe, where he purchases more than 80% of our production for each and every financial year for the last 10 years. Agreed. Yes, we know that we have lost that customer. Now we are basically implementing another few strategies for us to survive. We have found another 5 customers in Europe. So this is the answer which I am receiving from them. We have found another new 5 customers in the European market where they agreed to purchase our products for the upcoming 5 years. We have already found 5 customers in the European market. They basically already agreed to buy our product for the next 5 financial years. So with the minimum quantities. And we have signed the agreement with them, and these are the agreements. So what is the answer which I received from the management? Management also accepting, saying that we have lost a major customer. Fine, that's okay. but they have identified 5 new customers in the European market. Same market, they have identified new customers. And they have signed agreements with them as well. And they agreed to purchase for the next 5 financial years. Next 5 financial years. And they have signed the agreements as well. So the management is showing those agreements to me now. And number 2, the management is explaining. Jivanta, yes. The second strategy. As of now, our local market share is very minimal. Since we are basically catering to the export market, our local market share is very minimal. අපිට ලංකාවේ තියෙන market share එක හරි අඩුයි. So these are the strategies which we are implementing from next financial year onwards to expand our local market share. අපිට දැනට local market share එක හරි අඩුයි තියෙන. අපි export oriented නිසා හැබැයි මෙන්න මේ strategies වලින් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා අපි local market එකේ share එක expand කරගන්න. So those are the 2 strategies which we have already implemented for us to overcome the negative impact of losing a major customer. So that is the answer which I received from ABC. They have shown the agreements properly signed for the period of 5 years. They agreed to purchase minimum quantities of X amount each and every year. Everything is there. Then the strategy is very clear to expand the local market. The action steps, everything is there. Right. So that is the answer which I received. Then I am asking the same question from PQR. From PQR, the same question again. I am explaining the PQR management. Look here, there is a major customer located in Europe. That customer purchased more than 80% of your production for the last 5 to 10 financial years, but now this customer bankrupt. I am seeing an operational indicator which creates a significant doubt in my mind as an auditor with regard to the going concern assumption. So what is your action plan for this? I am asking the same question from PQR as well. Now PQR is giving me answer like this. Jivanta agreed. We lost a major customer which will have a clear negative impact to our business operations. We are trying our level best to find a new customer, but up until today, we failed to identify a new customer. We are also clueless to identify the way of we managing the business for the next financial years. That is the answer which I received from PQR management. Okay, so which business organization is having a question mark with regard to the going concern assumption now? Definitely PQR, not ABC. Agreed? But both ABC and PQR, I saw the same operational indicator. Agreed? Both ABC and PQR, I saw the same operational indicator. මේ දෙකේම මම මේ ක්‍රියාකාරක වීම දැක්කද නැද්ද? ක්‍රියාකාරක වීම දැක්ක. හැබැයි ABC management එක ගත්ත actions වලින් a negative impact එක අයින් වෙලා ගියා. The action steps taken by the ABC management is basically nullify the negative impact of losing the major customer. But PQR definitely is having a question mark now. Clear? Right. Okay, are we clear on this? Okay. Then, if someone is asking you, as an auditor, can you come to the final conclusion by just looking at the indicator? Your definite answer would be no. Why? The thing is, you don't have sufficient and appropriate audit evidences there. For you to come to the final conclusion, you need to have sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Remember, indicator cannot be considered as a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, which will create a red light, agreed. But that cannot be considered as a concrete audit evidence. Okay, so for an example, as I explained you earlier, the corrective actions taken by the management may nullify the negative impact of these indications. The corrective actions taken by the management may nullify the negative impact of those indications. That is what happens in those 2 examples. So therefore, you cannot come to the final conclusion. Okay, therefore, standard wanted you to perform several activities. Concentrate. Standard wanted you to perform several activities for you to come to the final conclusion. Number 1, standard wanted the auditor to have a discussion with management about their action plan with regard to the identified indicators. That is what I did. Standard wanted you to have a discussion with management with regard to the plans for the indicators which you identified. You need to have a discussion with management. Indication එකක් දැක්කම management එකත් එක්ක ගිහිල්ලා ඒක මොකද කරන්නේ? Discuss කරන්න ඕන. Number 2, discuss with lawyers with regard to a legal case or litigation. So let's say a third party file a case. Concentrate. Third party file a case against the business organization asking for a huge penalty. Let's say 500 million. If you fail in courts, you are not in a position to pay that amount, then definitely going concern is having a question mark. Okay, so let's say as of the balance sheet date, as of the reporting date, still the hearing is going on in courts. The final verdict, conclusion didn't come. So who know the current status of this legal case? Lawyers. Then you go and inquire from lawyers. නඩු කටයුතු සහ වන්දිල්ලීම් තියෙනවා නම් ව්‍යාපාරයට විරුද්ධව ගිහිලා lawyers ලාගෙන් අහන්න what is the current status. Then check the board minutes and check the board minutes and the shareholders minutes and check whether there are any discussions which has been taken place with regard to what? Going concern. මොකද going concern ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා නම් management එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම board meeting වල ඒවා සාකච්ඡා කරනවද නැද්ද? සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. So if you have, as management, if you do have a concern with regard to going concern assumption, definitely management will be discussing all these in board minutes, board meetings. So therefore, as an auditor, you need to check and review the board minutes and the shareholders minutes to identify whether there are any discussions taken place with regard to the going concern assumption. Finally, as an auditor, you need to review the assessment made by the management with regard to the ability of the business organization to continue as going concern. Management එක assessment එකක් කරලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒ assessment එක as an auditor you need to check and verify. Agreed? If assessment එකක් කරලා නැත්නම් if the management haven't done any assessment, inform the management to done an assessment. So these are the 4 procedures where the standard wanted for you to consider for you to obtain what? For you to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Clear? Okay, I hope up to this point you are crystal clear about this. Right. Okay, the same thing which I previously did, I'm going to do to this point as well. Okay. I put a star mark here previously and I put the same star mark here. Clear? Okay. I am putting a circle here and I am putting the same circle here as well. So we'll use a different color. We'll use a different color. Okay. Can you identify the link? Can you identify the link? So the second point that the standard is emphasizing the auditor, saying that look here, you need to obtain what? You need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Clear? By just looking at an indication, you cannot come to the final conclusion. For you to come to the final base, you need to have sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. So you will be having a clear understanding with regard to this with this. So this one is linking with this point. This point is linking with what? The other point. You cannot come to the final conclusion by just seeing an indication. You cannot come to the final conclusion by just seeing an indication. In that context, as an auditor, you need to obtain what? Sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. For you to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences, you need to perform these activities or procedures. Clear? Right. So I hope you will be getting a detailed understanding with regard to the link of these 2 points to the rest of the standard. Clear? Right. Okay. Coming back to the final phase. Okay. After performing those procedures and after obtaining audit evidences, the auditor needs to reach to the final conclusion with regard to the going concern assumption. Coming back to the point. After performing all procedures and after obtaining the audit evidences, you need to come to the final conclusion with regard to the going concern assumption. Right. Okay. Concentrate on this. Your final conclusion is this: going concern assumption is appropriate, but material uncertainty which is adequately disclosed. Going concern assumption appropriate, but material uncertainty which is adequately disclosed. In that context, you need to go for a modified opinion. So we will be having a deep discussion when we are discussing SLO 700, which is audit report, but for the time being, just understand. Number 2, going concern assumption appropriate, but material uncertainty which is not adequately disclosed. Going concern assumption is appropriate, but material uncertainty is there which is not adequately disclosed. Then you go for a qualified opinion or adverse opinion. Then you go for a qualified opinion or adverse opinion based on disagreement with management. So what do you mean by disagreement with management? We discuss in SLO 700. Okay, use of going concern assumption is inappropriate. Use of going concern assumption is inappropriate. Then straight away you need to go for a adverse opinion. Adverse opinion. Finally, management unwilling to make or extend its assessment. Then you need to go for a qualified or a disclaimer of opinion. Okay, so after you perform all these procedures, after you obtain all these necessary evidences, now it is the time for you to come to the final conclusion. So when you are coming to the final conclusion, you need to check all these stuff. Clear? So let's say going concern assumption is there, but you are seeing a material uncertainty which is properly disclosed in the financials. Then you go for a unmodified opinion with material uncertainty note. Then you can go for unmodified opinion with material uncertainty note. Going concern assumption is appropriate, but material uncertainty is there which is not adequately disclosed. Then you go for a qualified or adverse opinion based on the disagreement with management. Use of going concern assumption is inappropriate. So auditor came to the final conclusion saying that no, there is no going concern for this company. Then you go for a adverse opinion. Clear? Then the management is unwilling to make an extent of the assessment. Then you go for a qualified or a disclaimer of opinion. Clear? So you need to come to these final conclusions after obtaining all these informations. Clear? Right. Okay. Coming back to the final page. Okay. Okay, can you identify the link? This one is directly linked with what? This. This one directly linked with this. So what is the final responsibility of the auditor? Once you see a material uncertainty, go ahead and obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Once you obtain that, then you need to evaluate the impact which is having on the financial statements as well as on the audit opinion. That is what we discuss here. Clear? So material uncertainty is directly linked with this. Obtaining sufficient and appropriate directly linked with this. Analyzing the impact for financial statements and audit opinion directly linked with this. Okay, so the points which are discussed starting from this point and ending from this is an extension of the auditor's responsibility. I am repeating that sentence again. The points which are discussed starting from this and ending from this is an extension of the points which comes under the auditor's responsibility. So this is directly linked with this one directly linked with this, and this point directly linked with the conclusion. Clear? Okay, so I hope you got an overall understanding with regard to the going concern assumption. So I put some numbers for you to have a better understanding when you are reading those TUT and when you are reading this presentation once again. Okay, so I will be putting number 1 here. So the cover in this aspect. Then I am putting number 2 here, covering that aspect, that is management responsibility. Then I am putting number 3 here, covering the responsibility of the auditor. Then I am putting number 4 here, and I am putting number 5 here as well. And number 6 with regard to the conclusion. So this will give you a detailed understanding with regard to the introduction. This will give you a detailed understanding with regard to the management responsibility for the going concern assumption. This area will give you a clear understanding with regard to the auditor's responsibility for the going concern assumption. This will give you a clear understanding how you are going to ascertain the material uncertainty with regard to the going concern. This will give you a clear understanding with regard to how you obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences with regard to the going concern. The final area will give you a detailed understanding with regard to how you ascertain the impact of the going concern assumption for the financial statement as well as for the audit opinion. Clear? Right. Okay. All good. All done. Okay. So I hope this session has already given you a comprehensive understanding with regard to the going concern assumption. So I wanted all of you to read the material provided and uploaded in the JMC vLearning platform, where all the collaborative notes which we discuss under this standard is included there. So this will give you a clear understanding with regard to the entire mind map. After reviewing this presentation, after looking at this presentation, I wanted all of you to go back and to read the material or the TUT which is uploaded in the JMC vLearning platform under this standard. So I hope you got a 100% understanding, 100% thorough understanding with regard to one of the complex auditing standards which comes under your syllabus, which is syllabus 570, which is basically going concern. Okay, so I expecting you to read all the material provided, and I wanted for you to see this presentation several times for you to get a better understanding. Fine, so we'll meet you once again in the same platform while discussing another standard. Thank you.